Hey everyone, welcome back to our series on the Hasura Python Lambda connector. In the first video of this series, we set up and deployed the Python Lambda connector with its default functions. In this video, we're going to do a deeper dive into these functions to demonstrate the different capabilities of the Python Lambda connector. We'll start simple by looking at the hello function. When you work with the Python Lambda connector, you'll make use of decorators to register queries and mutations. For example, you will use the register query decorator to register a function as a query. For example, this function will become this query on your graph. When you execute this query, it will call this function. Queries and mutations can be synchronous or they can be asynchronous. And it's also possible to pass optional parameters, such as in the nullable hello example, where, as you can see, the name is of type string or none and defaults to none, which turns into a query where you can call app nullable hello. And if I do not pass a name, then it's hello world. And if I pass the optional name parameter, then it will say hello Tristan. Since this is Python, it's also possible to leave untyped parameters, such as in this mutation called SumMutation function. If I go ahead and run a mutation and call SumMutation function, I can pass a parameter that is a string, or I could pass an integer or a float or even an array. You can also use pydantic models as inputs and outputs for your function. For example, this greetPerson function takes as a parameter a person model, which is defined here, and returns a string. The person model has a name and a pets attribute, which is a list of pet models. Let's look at what the GraphQL for this looks like. If we want to call app greetPerson, we can fill out a name, and pets is nullable. So if we do not add pets, it will say, hello Tristan, I see you don't have any pets. However, if I did have pets, I could add an array of my pets, and it would say, hello Tristan, and hello to Fido. Types can get quite complex, and they can be used as inputs or outputs for your functions. When the output of a function is a specified type, you can use GraphQL to specify which fields you want returned. For example, I can get all the fields from this function returned, or I can choose to only get some of the fields that I want. I can even make use of aliasing to change the response to look exactly how I want it to. The SDK makes it easy to do tracing using some of the utility functions that are provided, such as the withActiveSpan function, which allows you to trace your code. Here we can see that span we added, along with its attributes. You can also register functions to run in parallel, but we'll talk about that more in the next video. The last thing we'll talk about is error handling. The SDK provides different error types for you to use. You can throw these errors and see the error messages in the API response. I hope that gives you a good overview of the Python Lambda connector. In the next video, we'll talk about how you can perform joins from functions to data, from data to functions, and from functions to other functions. using the Hasura Python Lambda connector.